What's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna be working on this 2008. This is a 528i, and I just finished replacing the crankshaft position sensor. So the main idea was to replace the crankshaft position sensor, and I ended up replacing a couple of hoses. I ended up replacing the intake because the other one was damaged. But today I want to focus on the valve cover. I'm gonna replace the whole thing, not just the gasket. It looks like they replaced the gasket before and it's not leaking right now. The only thing I did notice is that it's consuming a lot of oil. And when I removed the intake, it had like 2 quarts of oil in the intake. It had a bunch of oil. So I think the PCB inside the valve cover is damaged and it's just sucking all the oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace the whole valve cover. I also noticed they put a lot of silicone. So you're able to see that the valve cover, they just like put a bunch of silicone, not right here, but mostly on this area. So mostly right here, there's a bunch of silicone. So I'm just gonna remove this valve cover, clean it up, and I'm gonna install the new one. I got the new one over here, so I'm gonna replace all the gasket seals, everything that needs to be replaced. Okay, so I want to make it easy for myself. I'm gonna be removing these plastics right here. So all of this, these bars, once I remove those, I'm gonna start removing the wiring, the coils, this motor right here, and after that it should be pretty simple to remove the bolts on the valve cover and just take it out. So I'm gonna start taking off these plastics, not a big deal. And then this cover right here, then I'm gonna remove the bars and I should have access to the whole motor. Okay, on this side, all you gotta do is undo this sensor, disconnect this one, just put it to the side. Then you have a plastic bolt right here, just turn it counterclockwise. Then this bracket right here, there's a little bracket, you just undo the bracket, this one comes off. And on this side, same thing, except you don't have any connectors or anything, so this comes off. Now to remove this plastic, you got a couple of plastic bolts, so you just undo those. There's like 2 over here. There should be more, but some of them are missing. And it's gonna be the same thing on this side. You're gonna have some plastic bolts, so there's 3 on this side. I'm gonna undo those and I should be able to take the whole thing off. There's another bolt right here. This is like a Torx, so I'm gonna take that off and I should be able to remove the whole plastic. Okay, now that I got those plastics out of the way, so there they are, and in the middle there's like a plastic lock. So there's this plastic lock, and all you gotta do is just push it to the left, and it should be able to unlock both plastics, and that goes right in the middle. So once you take those off, you got 4 bolts holding this bracket. So I'm gonna remove those and I'm gonna take this off, and then I should have a lot of room to remove my valve cover. Okay, so there's my bracket. Now I have a lot of access to the valve cover. So what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna remove the harness for the injectors. There's like little clips inside the injectors, so I mean it's not a big deal to undo the clips. Then I'm gonna disconnect all the coils. I'm gonna disconnect this motor. I'm gonna take it off. There's 2 bolts holding this motor, so this is gonna come off. I think there's another bolt on the bottom, so I'm gonna have to remove this harness first before I even remove this. And that's pretty much it. There's another grounds right here, so these are like 8s. I'm gonna remove both of them. I think there's only 2, and that's gonna be it. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove the harness from the injectors. I'm gonna remove the coils, the harness from the coils, and lastly I'm gonna remove the motor. So I'm gonna use a pick to start disconnecting a couple of connectors. So I'm gonna use it to disconnect this sensor right here, and also the clips for the injectors. They should make my life a lot easier. So I'm gonna go ahead and start taking everything off. So I just moved the harness to the side. I disconnected 2 sensors, this one right here and the coolant temp. So this is oil pressure, the coolant temp, and I disconnected all the injectors. So I just moved these to the side, and I also put a zip tie over here on these 2 cables, and I'm just gonna hold them with the wiper, the windshield wiper. Okay, now I'm gonna remove the motor. So there's 2 bolts right here holding it. So it's 1, 2, and then there's another one right on the bottom. So this one right here, this little one over here. So I'm gonna take this off, these 2, and this should come off. After I do that, all I gotta do is just go all around the valve cover, remove the bolts, and I should be able to remove it. I'm gonna be using this socket right here. So this is flexible. That way I'll be able to get it on this side and on the back, and on the front and on the left hand side. I mean, it shouldn't be a big deal. I'm just gonna use a straight extension and I should be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead, take the motor off and the valve cover. All right, so I took these 2 off, and those are not the ones you're supposed to take off. They're actually in here. So there's one right here, and then there's another one in here. So I'm gonna take those off, and then the one on the bottom, and I should be able to remove the motor. All right, so here's the thing about this valve cover. If you try to take it off, it's not gonna come off. It's kind of like stuck right here. It's hitting on the back. So what you want to do is you want to get it up, and then you want to kind of like bring it forward somehow, like wiggle it around and try to like bring it forward. And once you bring it forward, it comes off no problem. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this gasket, and here it is. It's not a big deal. It looks like a big deal if you don't do it properly, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so you get it up as much as you can, and then you start like bringing it forward. Okay, so you're gonna work your way out from the back to the front. Okay, because it kind of gets stuck right here. But if you mess with it and try to bring it forward, if you pull it up and bring it forward at the same time and just clear this, you should be fine. It's not a big deal. All right, so here's my problem. Somebody else replaced the gasket, and they did not know what they were doing, and they stripped a bunch of bolts. So I'm gonna have to put helicoils, and I'm gonna have to fix whatever they messed up. All right, another thing, I thought this was silicone right here, even on the cover itself. So, I mean, it's a mess, and I thought it was silicone, but it's not silicone. This right here, this is JB Weld. So, I mean, it's a mess. And I believe the oil was going through here, inside of the motor. So that's why I'm replacing this. And I'm gonna do it properly because it doesn't look like whoever did it. See, they just put a bunch of JB Weld. I mean, I don't know why you would even put JB Weld on this. You don't have to put silicone, you don't have to put JB Weld, you don't have to put anything. You know, the gasket goes in dry. It's not gonna leak if you do it properly. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna clean everything. I gotta fix all the threads that they stripped, and I'm gonna throw everything back on. But I gotta make sure everything's good because I mean, as of right now, somebody messed with this motor and they didn't know what they were doing. So I'm gonna have to replace the valve cover, the gasket, and I'm gonna have to fix somebody else's mistake. Okay, so I cleaned the surface the best I could. So I'm ready to install my valve cover. I also checked the thread on all of the holes for the bolts, and they all seem to be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the valve cover. And remember, just start from the front and move it to the back. Wiggle it a little bit, make sure the gasket doesn't come off. And once it's in, before you bolt it on, make sure the gasket is in. And if it's in on the valve cover, then go ahead and bolt it down. So I'm gonna go ahead and install mine. Okay, so there it is. And there's a bracket that goes back here. I removed it. This is the bracket right here. So I took that bracket off to make it easier to slide in, and it wasn't a big deal. Before you bolt it on, make sure the gasket is on the valve cover and it didn't move, because if it moved, there's no use of bolting it on. I already checked mine. I actually lifted up and checked with my fingers underneath, and it's all the way in. So I'm gonna completely bolt on the valve cover on mine. I got my valve cover bolted on. So I'm ready to install the motor. I'm gonna put the motor that goes here. Then I'm gonna slide the coils in. I'm gonna install the harness, and that's pretty much it. And now I'm gonna go ahead and so I'm gonna connect this hose right here. I'm gonna connect it to the valve cover now. So before I connect it, I'm gonna put a little bit of grease, that way I don't damage the seal. And I'm just gonna completely connect it on. I'm almost done over here. I already put all the bolts on the cover. So I just put all the bolts around it. I also installed the coils, and there's also two grounds, one right here and the other one's gonna be over here. Make sure you connect those grounds because it's gonna be for the coils, or else it's not gonna fire. I kind of cleaned the head a little bit. So they put a lot of silicone, and they also put a lot of JB Weld. I guess they couldn't line up the gasket. It was leaking, so they thought they would just glue it on, and it doesn't work like that. So just be careful when you install the valve cover. And like I said, start from the front, push it to the back, and let it sit. Because if you just want to like put it on from the top, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna go in. So there's a special way of doing it. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest. All I gotta do is just put those plastics on. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the plastics, and that should be it. I'm gonna go ahead, turn it on, and I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't leak any more oil. So I'm pretty much done with the car. All I gotta do is put this cover on, and that's it. But I already put my strut bar. So you gotta put the strut bar and then the cabin filters on each side, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the old cover. So this one, they put a bunch of like silicone, and they also put a bunch of JB weld. And I mean, I don't know if it was leaking or if they just were insecure and they thought it was gonna leak. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer the best I can. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.